It won't be the rupee. It won't be the yuan. It won't be any of these single currencies that will be a reserve currency. But what it will be is a common settlement currency that has the potential to morph into a reserve currency. And in the meantime, they will take commodities that will replace treasuries, which can be weaponized. And that's where I think we're heading. So do I think that there will be a common settlement currency, common reserve currency? Yes, over time there will be. But, at this point right now, we're not there. But the settling in local currencies and the buying of gold instead of treasuries is chipping away at the dollar hegemony little by little for sure.
The price of yellow metal in India has almost tripled in 10 years, with the rate rising above 900% in a decade. Physical gold does not carry the counterparty risk of other financial paper assets. This means its value is not dependent on any entity's ability to fulfill contractual obligations. Gold prices sank in all major currencies on Friday, dropping $80 an ounce in 6 hours and falling faster than global stock markets, bond prices, Bitcoin and copper after stronger than expected U.S. jobs data worsened the steep plunge in the precious metal already made on news that the People's Bank of China didn't buy any bullion for its official reserves last month. However, Peter Schiff and other gold advocates predict that the recent announcements are part of a strategy to drive investors away from gold and silver so that the Chinese government can buy more precious metals at lower prices. David Tate, CEO of the World Gold Council, WGC, told Reuters on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Precious Metals Conference in Singapore. But they are just waiting and watching. They will resume if prices correct to the $2,200 per ounce level. Andy Schectman recently appeared in an interview on Capital Cosm's YouTube channel. Before we continue to discuss this, please subscribe to our channel and activate the bell icon for timely updates.
What they have done, first and foremost, over the last year is sell treasuries and buy gold to replace treasuries. You go back to the year 2000. Treasury market's been really, since 2000, hasn't done much at all with the low interest rates, right? But if you look at what gold has done, it's up 900%. It's way outperformed the bond market. It's outperformed the stock market. It's outperformed the S&P. It's averaged 9.5% or so per year compounding. The S&P like 7.5%, 8%, even with reinvestment of dividends. And so when you talk about the performance of the bond market, it's way outperformed the gold market. But what does it have? It has a gold is an asset that simultaneously carries no counterparty liability. It can't be defaulted on. It can't be sanctioned or stolen. So they are selling treasuries and if you look at the treasury holdings, China's down to 700 billion. They were at 3 trillion. They're selling treasuries slowly, not too fast, to spike rates and to cut off their nose to spite their face. I think commodities have a greater value than currency at this point. Zoltan Pozsar, who used to be at the Fed, a very smart man, said we are now in Bretton Woods 3. Remember, Bretton Woods 1 when we became took over for the pound sterling. Bretton Woods 2 loosely when we became the petrodollar. Bretton Woods 3, he says, is a system that will be defined by transparency, a la blockchain, and commodities, a la gold. And that's what these countries are doing. Now, we will find out which of the 36 countries are going to be admitted that have formally applied. And I think what they're waiting for is to have a large enough mass where, to your point, if, let's say we have a BRIC settlement currency, and to me, gold, see, right now, the settlement and all of these deals, like Iran just did a deal with China to modernize their biggest airport, worth several billion dollars. They're paying for it in oil. All of these things would have settled in dollars, and excess reserves would have gone into treasuries. Chipping away at the settlement status of the dollar is all of these countries using their local currencies to do transactions. Chipping away at the reserve status of the dollar is the shedding of treasuries, which is the reserve, and buying gold instead of treasuries. So you're chipping away both at the reserve and the settlement and the reserve status of the dollar. So if you have enough countries, let's say you have 50 countries that represent 75% of GDP, the majority of human population, all this stuff, you can trade and get the BRICS settlement currency with whichever country you do business with. But then if you want to buy something, instead of taking rupee and having to deal with India, you can get the BRICS settlement currency and buy whatever you want from any of the 50 countries that have goods and services to sell. And then the proceeds, the excess reserves, are piled into gold, at least for now, until they issue or have a vibrant enough bond market. That's a long ways away. It won't be the rupee. It won't be the yuan. It won't be any of these single currencies that will be a reserve currency. But what it will be is a common settlement currency that has the potential to morph into a reserve currency. And in the meantime, they will take commodities that will replace treasuries, which can be weaponized. And that's where I think we're heading. So do I think that there will be a common settlement currency, common reserve currency? Yes, over time there will be. But, at this point right now, we're not there. But the settling in local currencies and the buying of gold instead of treasuries is chipping away at the dollar hegemony little by little for sure.
The Kobayashi letter shared a post on X about the global debt crisis. The post reads, "The global debt crisis. Total world government's debt hit a whopping $315 trillion in Q1 2024, a new all-time high. In Q1 alone, total global debt increased by $1.3 trillion. At the same time, emerging markets debt hit $105 trillion, rising by approximately $50 trillion in just a decade, with the biggest increase in China. Across developed markets, the US and Japan have added the most debt. The global debt to GDP ratio has surged to 333%, just below a record high of 362% in 2021. Debt is becoming the global solution. After several countries repatriated their gold, the Bank of International Settlements, BIS, reclassified gold as a Tier 1 asset in 2019. Previously, gold was classified as a Tier 3 asset, which meant that if it appeared on a balance sheet, it was only valued at 50% of its actual value. Under the new rules, central banks can count their gold holdings at market value equivalent to cash, meaning that gold is now valued at 100%. Now, let's get back to the interview.
I hope I'm wrong, but ask yourself, how the hell do you pull up from a nosedive where you have 200 trillion in debt and no manufacturing base and rising inflation and lost our trust around the globe by weaponizing the dollar and confiscating assets when the rest of the world, or much of it, looks at us as being hypocritical? So where are we? I don't know, man. I don't even look at the micro. I look at the big picture. And to me, it's not about return on your money. It's about return of. And I think that's the most important thing at this point. So we go back to the August meeting in Johannesburg, and in the BRICS, the chairmanship or the presidency chairmanship rotates each year. Last year it was in South Africa. This year it's in Russia. And a lot of people, James Rickards, who I'm friendly with, I had the good fortune of talking to him about this last July in person down here at Rick Rule's conference in Boca, and he was under the impression that they would issue a common settlement currency, and I use the word specifically, or settlement currency, in August. Last year they didn't. He also said a couple things that I've been saying for 3 years, that the Eurasian Economic Union, which are all the former Russian countries that end in stan, and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the largest financial and regional financial and military organization on the planet, that they're going to join the BRICS. In fact, the president of Belarus just called for a summit to do just that. They're going to join. Neither of these things happened in August. But what did happen was that they said, listen, we need to go back to the drawing board. And I want you to bring all your finance ministers back to the meeting in October, this coming October in Russia, present your findings on a common settlement currency. In the meantime, we want to trade in local currencies with one another and settle things that way. So if you realize that Sergei Glaziev, who was the Russian finance minister that for 3 years said that they will have a common settlement currency, and it will be pegged to a basket of commodities and a basket of currencies of the countries that are involved. Understand this, first and foremost, that I believe the commodities he's talking about largely is gold. And the reason I say that is that in 2019, the Bank of International Settlements, which is the most powerful bank in the world, the central bank or central bank, reclassified gold as the only Tier 1 reserve asset next to U.S. Treasuries, the only other one. It's been for 75 years, basically, U.S. dollars and treasuries were Tier 1 asset for a central bank, riskless. Gold, out of the blue, is also Tier 1. And if you look at the amount of gold that the central banks have been buying largely since 2017 quietly, and then repatriating their gold, like the Bank of India just repatriated all their gold from the Bank of England. All of the Saudi Arabia just repatriated all their gold from the New York Fed, as did several African countries, as did the Bundesbank of Germany, the Dutch National Bank, the Bank of Austria, Poland, Hungary, Turkey, the Czech Bank. They all repatriated their gold, and they have been buying more gold as a group over the last 3 years than any time in central bank history.
What are your thoughts on Andy Schectman's interview? Drop your comments in the comment section below. If you find this video informative, remember to support our channel and turn on notifications to stay informed about our latest videos. See you in the following video.